everyone, welcome back to my channel. I'm Huck. Today we're talking about my priority authors to try in 2026. So in 2026, I want to read more backlist authors, especially authors that were writing maybe primarily in like the 90s, early 2000s, or at least that's where they got their start, even if they're still writing and, you know, the series may even still be going on. But like authors that are a little bit more backlist, that have been writing for a little bit longer. Some of these books that have been on my mental TBR for years and I just haven't gotten to them. One of the things that I really enjoyed in 2025 was that I really dove into Sharon Shin's books. She is a backlist author that is still writing, but she's been writing for quite a few years. She has some completed series, and so it was really fun to just like dive into her work and get to read through these already completed series that I have been meaning to read for so many years. And so I want to do that again. You know, not all of these authors are necessarily going to be a success for me, but I want to finally get to them, give them a try, and find out if I want to continue on with their books, especially for the ones where they have completed series that I can just binge throughout the year. So that is really what I want to do, get some of these authors off of my mental TBR. And I have many more, but I'm going to focus on a top three, because also if I end up liking all of them, that's a lot of books and series to commit to. So we're going to talk about my top three priorities, but just know there's a long list in my mind and on my Goodreads of backlist authors that I want to get to. I'm not making one of those top 10 to read this year or 26 for 2026 or anything like that, because between this TBR and my TBR clear out project, it's gonna be like 20 books. So those cumulatively are kind of my top priority TBR for the year. And I will link my TBR clear out project video for 2026 in the description. But let's get into it. So my first one that I really want to get to this year is an author that I have technically tried before, but I actually DNF'd one of her books. So I want to give her another shot, which is Morgan Llewellyn. So Morgan Llewellyn writes historical fiction, specifically Irish historical fiction, and has written across decades and centuries. I think that she has written all the way from like ancient Ireland that feels more mythological up through maybe even the 20th century Irish history. So there's a real breadth to her work. I did DNF a book, I think it was called Druids, from her years ago. At this point, I don't even really remember why I DNF'd it. But I do remember thinking like I would still give something else from her a try, especially because Morgan Llewellyn is like a titan within, you know, Celtic historical fiction, which is one of my favorite like niche subgenres. So I feel like I should read more from her. And also the book that I DNF'd, Druids, was one that is not one of her more popular books. It was one that just sounded interesting to me. I like books about druids, but it's not one of her more well-known or well-loved books. And so I was like, maybe I should give one of her more popular books a try, because it might just be that I read one of her books that's just like not one of her better ones. So of course my interest is going to primarily be on the books that are set in like ancient to medieval time period. But I was trying to do a little research on her about like what are her most popular books, where do people recommend you start, especially for the ones that are set in like earlier time periods. And it seems like one of the suggested starting points is The Horse Goddess, which I hauled this last year, I think early in 2025. And so I really want to give this one a shot. This is kind of the first book in her like the ancient Celtic world series-ish. It's not really a series. I think it's all standalones, but they are kind of grouped together as these are all of the ones that are set in like ancient Ireland. And so this one is kind of the first in that like semi-series. And I think is one that is like more mythological in tone. It's one that seems to be very popular and lots of people recommend as a good starting point. So I feel a little more confident about like this will hopefully give me a real sense of what she's like as an author. Whether I like it or not, I feel like this is probably a better starting point for me to really get a sense of her writing and her stories and all of that. So I definitely want to read The Horse Goddess. If I enjoy this, then I can continue on with the rest of her ancient Celtic world books. But also, I remember when I hauled this last year that I got a few comments from people saying that this is also on your TBR and that you guys were interested in reading it. So if anybody wants to buddy read this, please let me know in the comments. If there are enough people, we could get like a little book club going, maybe on Discord or something. But I just think that would be really fun. So if you're interested in buddy reading this with me, please let me know. The next two authors, I do not have their physical books yet, but I am planning to get them, although I will probably be trying to find them secondhand if I can, although they're so far not easy to track down. But first up, we'll talk about Carol Berg. Now, Carol Berg is an author that I am not sure if I'm going to like her books or not, but I really just want to give her a try and see what I think. Now, she's an author that I heard about from Chris Bookish Cauldron, who we have very similar fantasy reading taste. So I'm always interested in books that he mentions, and maybe like 5 years ago, I know he talked about Carol Berg, and she's just been an author that I've always been like, oh, I should just give her a shot, see what I think. However, I have also seen some reviews where people have said some of her books do have gratuitous torture to the point that it feels like torture porn and it's just like too much, which is not something that appeals to me. So I'm going in with moderate expectations, but I still just want to give her a shot, see what I think. Now, this is an author that I'm not sure yet exactly where I'm going to start. She has multiple series and I just don't really know which one I want to start with, so it might kind of depend on like what I'm able to find. But if anyone has any recommendations for where to start with her books, please let me know. I am willing to read, you know, 1 to 3 books from this author. So if I'm gonna try like a couple of either standalones or series from her, I think one of the ones I was thinking of trying, the first book is called Flesh and Spirit, which I was a little suspicious of because both the title and the cover make it look like this is going to be a vampire book, but from what I can tell, it's not about vampires. If anyone can confirm for me whether this involves vampires or not, I would really appreciate it, because I don't like vampires, and so I don't think that would be a good place for me. However, this is one where people have said like it has the least gratuitous torture in it, so that's why I was interested. I think it's also a duology, so that might be like an easy entry point. As another series that the first book starts with transformation, this one seems to be one of her more well-known series, but also I've seen some reviews who find it very like cheesy, so that makes me kind of question whether I'm gonna be into it. Some of the main characters have wings, and I feel like that can very easily be kind of cheesy, so I'm not sure about that one. And then another series of hers starts with Son of Anavar, and this one sounds like it could be really interesting. It sounds like it has an interesting magic system to it. And then the last one that I was considering was Song of the Beast, which I think is a standalone, which is interesting to me. So maybe I will read Song of the Beast as a standalone and then try 1 or 2 like first books in a series from her to kind of see what I think of her as an author. But as I said, if you have any recommendations where you think I should start, please let me know. And then the third author that I really want to try in 2026 is Janny Wurts. And this is the one that I feel maybe most optimistic about, and I'm really hoping that I will like her books. So she is another author that I heard about from Chris Bookish Cauldron. So in some ways she's kind of in the same category in my mind as Carol Berg, just because I heard about them from the same person around the same time. But I have higher hopes that I will enjoy Janny Wurts. I've just heard great things about her writing and her characters, but she has been on my mental TBR for at least like 5 years now. But I have been seeing more people talking about her recently. They've been mostly talking about her like Daughter of the Empire series that she co-wrote with Raymond Feist, and I'm not as interested in that series. I'm more interested in the works that she wrote solo. But it still has like gotten me re-excited about her as an author. I will also say, I'm going to tell you the books in just a second, but also while I was doing some research about Janny Wurts and like where to start with her, I saw that she did like an online book club or something where they read one of her favorite books, and the book that she picked was The Scorpio Races by Maggie Stiefvater, which like Maggie Stiefvater is one of my favorite authors of all time. The Scorpio Races isn't my favorite thing from her, but I do really like it. And so the fact that Janny Wurts also likes Maggie Stiefvater makes me also more optimistic about her as an author, and that maybe I will like her books. You know, that kind of thing doesn't always translate. Like the books that an author likes to read aren't always very similar to the books that they write, but it still makes me feel like maybe I will like her writing if she also appreciates Maggie Stiefvater's writing style. But for Janny Wurts, I do have more of a sense of what I want to read from her. So I think I do want to do one standalone and then maybe the first book in 2 different series, just to see if I want to read either of those series. So the standalone that I want to try from her is Sorcerer's Legacy. I believe this is her debut novel, and it could be a good entry point because it's a standalone. It's under 300 pages, I think. It has a romance in it, which could make it more engaging, and it seems like it is tonally lighter than some of the other things that she's written, so could be like a good entry point. She does have some other standalones that are more acclaimed maybe, but don't necessarily appeal to me as much. There's one that is called To Ride Hell's Chasm that I know a lot of people really love, but the premise of that one really doesn't sound interesting to me, so I probably wouldn't read it unless I already knew like I love her as an author. So I feel like Sorcerer's Legacy might be a better standalone for me to try from her. Then the 2 series that I want to try, one of them starts with Storm Warden, and this one also may be a kind of easy entry point. It is the first book in a trilogy. The books aren't too long. I think there are 3 POVs, but it sounds like it is a more like straightforward story. Like I hear good things about it, but not that it's like overly complex. So it could be a good entry point that isn't overly overwhelming, and also it's a trilogy, so it's not like a huge commitment. I don't think each of the books is super long or anything, so that could be a good one to try. And then the other one that I want to try is The Curse of the Mistwraith, which is the first book in her larger series that's kind of her magnum opus. This one is really like the big commitment. I think it's an 11-book series. Most of the books in that series are over 600 pages. It is much more epic and sprawling, much more thematically complex, but I've also heard it has some of her best writing and characterization. It's really something that is a large commitment, but people who love it love it. And so I do really want to try the first book, at least in that series as well, just to see what I think of her big magnum opus. And I think it actually is a series that maybe just recently finished, and she has been writing for over a decade. So those are the 3 from Janny Wurts that I want to try. I also would be interested if anyone has, you know, opinions as to what is a good starting point for her. These are the 3 that I think I'm going to try, but I also am still open to suggestions. So those are my top 3 priority reads. I also have a couple of other authors that I will just mention briefly. These are not necessarily ones I am committed to trying this year, but some that are you know, on my mind. An author that I have read something from before, but it was so long ago that I barely remember, is Sherwood Smith. So I think when I was in high school, I read A Posse of Princesses, which is a standalone YA fantasy about princesses. And I remember liking it, and I also remember that I always meant to try her Inda series, which is an adult high fantasy, much more like epic, and a much chunkier series, and I never really got around to it. I think in general, my taste, I tend to prefer smaller scope, more intimate, character-driven stories, but I do enjoy a chunky epic fantasy here and there, as long as they still have strong writing and characters. So I do think that I might try her Inda series. Another author that I read a really long time ago that I would like to try again because I just don't remember that well is Kate Elliott. In high school, I read part of her Crown of Stars series, which is her like chunky epic fantasy, and I think I read like 4 of 7 books in that series and then kind of forgot about it and never continued on. And I think that, like, I don't remember a lot of it because it's been a while, but I do think that from what I remember at the time, it may have been too dark for me. And so I would be interested to try it again as an adult and see what I think of it now. Or just try something else from her. She has a few other fantasy and sci-fi series that I'm kind of interested in. So I would like to try something else from Kate Elliott, but I'm not committed to exactly what. And then the last one that I'm going to mention today is Soldran's Garden, or Leonessa. I'm not sure how you pronounce this, but it's by Jack Vance. And this is a series that it's just kind of been on the back of my mind for a long time, and I would love to finally give it a shot. But as I said, Sherwood Smith, Kate Elliott, and Jack Vance are ones that are not priorities for me. I am not committed to reading them in 2026, but I would love to get to them as well. But Morgan Llewellyn, Carol Berg, and Janny Wurts are my top priorities that I am committing to this year, that I want to try at least one book from, hopefully more, to get a sense of what do I think of them as authors. But please let me know if there are any backlist authors that either you are excited to read or any that you think I would love. Please tell me about it in the comments. But thank you all for watching, and until next time, bye!